Daly. Deputy Daly, please. Thank you. Deputy Daly.
I think Taoiseach.
Hey, Deputy, please. Deputy Daly, please. Deputy Butterworth, I won't ask you again, please. Deputy Daly is on her feet. No. Will you please resume your seat? Deputy, will you resume your seat, please? No, I know what you're talking about.
Taoiseach, I'd imagine you would agree that it's not the time you get out of bed at that's important, it's what you do with that time. Now, we've obviously been caught somewhat unawares by your announcement here this afternoon, given the unequivocal backing that you personally, the Taoiseach personally, and every one of your government team has given consistently throughout every scandal that Minister Shatter has been involved in. And not least the announcement over the weekend that he was guilty of a breach of law. First time in our history that a sitting minister was deemed to be guilty of breaking the law, and not just any minister, but a minister in the department who was charged with responsibility for overseeing and enforcing that data protection legislation. And you and your ministerial team, including Minister Varadkar not later than this morning, sought to dismiss and rubbish the findings of the Data Protection Commissioner, even though it's a well-established precedent in every jurisdiction that where a minister is found guilty of illegality or indeed lying to Parliament, that immediate resignation, to be honest, is the norm. So while not bearing any personal grudge against Minister Shatter, I would say that everybody on this side of the House is only amazed that it has probably taken this long, because in other jurisdictions he would have been long gone. And we say that particularly given the crises that he has weathered over the past 18 months, where you've stood by him through the major scandals in relation to the bugging of GSOC, to the very serious allegations of Garda malpractice put forward by Sergeant Maurice McCabe. And let's remember that Maurice McCabe, who's had to last week put in a complaint about bullying that he is experiencing by members of the force at the moment, has been campaigning on these issues for 5 years. And the report, which is so damning, issued by Justice Gearan, is based on allegations that he submitted to the Garda authorities, personally to the Assistant Commissioner who today applied to be Chief Constable of the PSNI, ironically enough. We were told, and he was told by Minister Shatter, there was no case to answer, that those matters had been investigated. Now, my questions to you are as follows. You've made a point a couple of times about GSOC not cooperating with the Gearan inquiry. What do you mean by that? GSOC have been at the butt of an undermining campaign by the former minister on numerous occasions. I'm aware that the former Garda Commissioner approached the Garda organisations and asked them to issue public statements of no confidence in GSOC at the time of the bugging applications. Now, what is the implication of your remarks that they didn't cooperate? Because this is the body charged with Garda accountability. The problem is far deeper than Minister Shatter. Do you accept now that we need a root and branch review of the entire operation of An Garda Síochána, and that Professor Dermot Walsh's points about Garda accountability should be seriously implemented?
Well, as I said to you, when I said that GSOC did not cooperate with the Senior Counsel, GSOC expressed difficulties in respect of furnishing documentation to him. Clearly, the Deputy Shatter, as Minister for Justice, pointed out on many occasions the inadequacies, as he saw them, both of the then confidential recipient structure and the structure of GSOC itself. And if a properly functioning GSOC were able to follow through on complaints made to it, perhaps this particular report might not have been necessary at all. It would be my view that when the government consider the terms of reference for the Commission of Investigation, which Mr. Gearan has recommended, that the question of the adequacy of investigation by GSOC should be considered as part of the terms of reference. That's a matter for government to actually decide. We also have, as you're aware, Commission of Investigation into other matters insofar as the Garda Síochána are concerned by Justice Fennelly and that matter is underway. So clearly, the question of the terms of reference for this particular recommendation by Mr. Gearan will be considered by government next week, and obviously everybody in the House will have their opportunity to contribute to that as well, including Deputy Daly.
Deputy Daly,
Even more confused than I was before you started, but I wonder, could you advise us, has he resigned as Minister for Defence as well? But the root of this issue is, in fact, Garda accountability. That's the far more serious issue rather than Minister Shatter himself. Now, he absolutely defended lock, stock and barrel the operation of the Gardaí when Deputy Wallace moved legislation last summer calling for reform. And it's been our experience that in actual fact GSOC have the desire to be what they were set out to be, a body which could oversee complaints in relation to the force, but that they have been made toothless by the existing legislation. Now, I'm not sure what your implication is, that they had difficulties in providing information to Gearan. Are you saying that they couldn't find the stuff he asked them for, they didn't want to, or they weren't cooperating? There's sort of veiled information in what you're saying there. I think it's quite clear now, and I wonder would you agree with me, that the issues around the Cook inquiry, which deals with the bugging of GSOC, which seems to be very central to this whole issue, must now be brought under a proper commission of inquiry, and we must now take this opportunity to revitalise and redevelop, reconstitute on Garda Síochána in a manner which hasn't been done since the foundation of the state.
Thank you. Taoiseach.
Well, as Deputy Daly is aware, the government have also made a decision that there should be a statutory and independent authority in respect of the running and the structure of the Garda Síochána. The committee that I chair on that had its first meeting last week, but expect that through the public consultation and discussions will now take place, that we can come back in July with recommendations as to how that structure should be set up and how it should operate. Obviously that will be reported to the House here and discussed. The report due in from Justice Cook is on its way, I understand. I don't have a date for its being received, but obviously when that report comes to hand, we'll receive that report and treat it in the same fashion as this report. It will be published and laid before the House, and the recommendations will be considered and implemented hopefully by government. So that report is also due in shortly, Deputy Daly.
That completes